We are a mere 5 days away from the Cleveland Browns opener at home against the Cincinnati Bengals, and it's certainly that time of year. Maybe it's because the Browns were off today, but the fandom just goes off the rails. And it's time for the yearly conversation that so many of you don't get or don't want to believe. And it usually comes from people on social media hitting me with, why is Kevin Stefanski still here? And how soon will he be fired? I laugh. I laugh. Talk about all that and more. Browns, 3D on the OBR streaming network, starting now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns at 3D on the OBR streaming network. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate each and every one of you that come to the OBR.com daily for your favorite Cleveland Browns written content from our incredible group of writers. While you're at the OBR.com, highly suggest you look into the VIP package, the Ask the Insiders options, of course, the Insider Forums. Your subscription is bundled with a subscription to Paramount Plus, all the great UFC action to come that will be channeled through Paramount Plus. So make sure you're doing all that. We appreciate all the support for the OBR streaming network. Nightly viewing beginning at 6 o'clock with Browns 3D. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR over on Twitch. You can almost set your watch by it, and we go through this every fall. And, why is Kevin Stefanski still here? Is he going to get fired at the end of the year? We haven't even taken a snap yet. And for all intents and purposes, training camp, preseason went pretty well. At times it makes me laugh. It really does. Kevin Stefanski, and whether you think he deserved it or not, has been named Coach of the Year twice in 5 years, 2020 and 2023. Coach Kevin Stefanski has taken the team to the playoffs in 2020 and in 2023. And for a franchise that just, I can't even say they wallowed in mediocrity, because that would be a compliment. This franchise was terrible. You guys know it. I don't have to tell you it. This franchise was terrible. Are they the definition right now of stability? I don't think I would go that far. They have certainly had years where they exceeded expectations. Certainly had a year like last year that was just, an absolute train wreck. I hear things like the quarterback position, which I basically told you from day one when I got here, there was going to be no answer to the quarterback position in 2025 that was going to give anybody the warm and fuzzies or was going to give the Cleveland Browns a legit option that would be here for many years to come. And there was not. It was not available through trade. It was not available through free agency. There was one guy in the draft, we think, because he hasn't played it down yet himself. There was no answer. Kevin Stefanski has shown at times that his offense is most certainly not the issue. 2023, the team went to the playoffs and won games, started at the quarterback position by 4 different guys. I think this stems from probably talking yesterday about the draft quarterback class for 2026. And I don't care. We're going to do it. I have to do it. Would not be doing the job. Would be doing a complete disservice if we were not mentioning the collegiate quarterbacks going through this season, vying to be top selections in the 2026 NFL draft where the Cleveland Browns hold 2 picks. We would not be doing the jig. We would not be doing the gig correctly. It's going to be a focal point of this, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not exactly sure how it's gonna fall into the weekly lineup just yet, and we've talked about maybe finding a way to also do a whole separate weekly series on this. We certainly have some airtime we can fill. There's no question. I just don't get the general dislike for Coach Stefanski. Has it been perfect? No, absolutely not. You know, people think that I have zero issues or think that Kevin Stefanski has never had a flaw in his time here. As terrible as the Deshaun Watson situation in the trade and all of that and what it's become is, yeah, it is. And it'll go down as the worst transaction in professional sports history, in my opinion. The bigger issue, and the one they all fudged up, and the one I will give the hardest time for, was Baker. 2020 went so well, so much positivity, playoff win in Pittsburgh. And again, oh, he doesn't get any credit for that. He was home. Yeah, So I say, we fire him because he had COVID. Stop. I mean, all that stuff is ridiculous. But how bad 2021 went. And look, I still believe there's a large amount of you that have not listened to Baker Mayfield speak recently and talk about his own issues in 2021. Some of it he's put out there. Some of it has been put out there by others, but is true. Everybody was fault for 2021, and everybody was at fault for the Baker Mayfield situation not continuing in Cleveland. He should have gotten his contract extension right after 2020. Should not have even been a question. He, along with Stefanski and Andrew Berry, took a team that had no time to prepare, basically, just like the rest of the league did not during COVID. Went out and ran to 11 games, went to the playoffs. Baker got injured. Baker was too stubborn to be honest with himself and honest to everybody else in that locker room, teammates, coaches, front office, that he was too hurt to perform to the best of his abilities. He was having legit off-field issues in regards to his father and brother, essentially robbing him blind. That is one I'll give Stefanski a hard time for, Barry a hard time for, Jimmy Haslam certainly a hard time for, and Baker as well. They all had a really good thing going. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Cleveland succeeded in 2020. And the expectation was they were going to be even better in 2021. And it was not good. Not good at all. And I think all these guys who had, that taste of success from 2020, certainly Haslam, certainly Andrew Barrett, his first year as a GM, Kevin Stefanski as a head coach, he had been a success as an assistant coach with the Minnesota Vikings playoff runs, and certainly Baker. And I think everybody kind of got their own egos into it. And I think everybody kind of felt that maybe they were more responsible for the team's success in 2020 than the collective effort of the quarterback, the coach, the front office, and the owner. Baker wasn't in the best of places and certainly handled things poorly, things that he's talked about and admitted about now. In a much better place in his life right now, which certainly leads to a much better product on the field. This team has a good coach. This team has a really good coach. They don't need a coach. What they need is stability at the quarterback position. They need their guy. And it does seem insane, surely, that we were talking about a general manager and a head coach who are now in their sixth season together, running this franchise, and still have yet to have their guy step up and be their guy. They made an egregious mistake, cost the franchise a ton of draft choices, cost Jimmy Haslam $230 million guaranteed. Deshaun gets every dime of that. However, it doesn't matter. But whatever way they want to give it to him, Deshaun Watson gets every dime of that money. They gambled on the wrong dude. Baker always had the heart, had it in spades. And at times that's what became Baker's issue. And I didn't mean to get too far into this about Baker, but it's a prime example of they gambled on the wrong guy. The guy they gambled everything on was a guy who just got here and did not give an oomph about anything. His injuries didn't help and his missed time didn't help. But he got here and essentially, and the old phrase of he took the money and ran. Nah, he took the money and stayed and basically said, here, I'm taking the money and I'm giving you nothing. The problem is not the coach or the general manager. The problem is the moves they've made. And you can't swing massively and whiff. And they did. And yet, they're still here. Still supported by their owner. And we'll get the opportunity yet again in 2026 to find the guy. We're getting the team will be back tomorrow, Wednesday, normal Wednesday practice, normal Thursday practice, Friday walkthrough as they set to begin the regular season on Sunday at 1 o'clock against the Bengals. Trey Hendrickson coming back for the Bengals certainly is a tremendous help for them. I don't know it's, the be all end all and going to change the fortunes for the Cincinnati Bengals in the 2025 season. I've never disagreed with what the Bengals did as far as committing what they had to the offensive side of the ball. Their offense is insane. It is. Not sure about their offensive line, but the points that this team can put up between, Burrow and of course Jason Higgins and the tight ends and Brown. Chase Brown's going to be a fantastic running back. This offense is just an absolute stinking unit. And it honestly at times makes me wonder what Bengals practices look like. I mean, does the Bengals defense do anything? Do they ever make a play in practice? Or do they just get roasted all day, every day, all week long, all summer long? I feel pretty strongly about it, this game on Sunday. I do. Certainly there's a questions, which will be vital. Can the Cleveland Browns offense run the ball, which will help control the clock, which will help keep the defense rested, yada, 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 all the things, you'll hear on any pregame show. Because if they can't, the more opportunity you give the Cincinnati Bengals offense to be on the field, the more they can just light you the hell up. They released a depth chart today, and normally I don't even bat an eye at these things. I don't. The only thing I thought for me that was probably slightly interesting, I guess, was that Alex Wright was listed as a starter over Isaiah McGuire. And I think Alex Wright is always kind of ends up being the forgotten guy. And certainly injuries will do that. And, Alex missed a ton of time last year. I just think that, Isaiah McGuire has progressed so much as a player And it does seem weird because, you know, the strength certainly of Isaiah's game is his run defense. So, wouldn't you consider the run defender the first stringer? And then you start substituting in the situational pass rushers? Again, not really like overly agitated or aggravated with it. It's just, something for me that kind of, in my opinion, seems amiss. Certainly for the Browns, running the ball is going to be key. Certainly the other key is going to be, who can do something as a receiver who's not named Jerry Judy or David Njoku. Certainly have to be the absolute keys for the Bengals as far as what you're trying to take away. Judy and David Njoku, as we all know. Uh, Tillman, Thrash. Certainly eyes are going to be on Harold Fannin Jr. The running backs, of course. Confident in Joe. I think, of the options that made it to Berea and Cleveland for this season at the quarterback position, this was by far the best one, even at 40 years old. The best player at the position they have certainly is a guy that has the respect of the locker room, has the respect of his teammates. Certainly the relationship with he and David Njoku is certainly, just fun to watch when you're talking about two guys that are a decade apart in age. This is Joe's show. What could be? Who knows? Maybe his last hurrah in the sun. Can Joe play well enough to make this team competitive? Can Joe play well long enough to keep this job for himself, perhaps even for the entirety of the season? I think we're all in agreement that, it would certainly be too soon to put a Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders on the field. But the other thing is, with that understanding is, what kind of work are either one of these going to get in practice that is going to say, okay, they're ready to go against a Lion team, a Packer team, a Viking team, a Ravens defense, or a Steelers defense. So without these guys getting onto the field in the regular season, it's hard to believe or wonder to believe, you know, what are they going to accomplish in practice? That's going to be, the enough that you say, okay, I think we can pull Joe and go with Dylan, go with Shador. You're certainly not going to represent any of those defenses, the top defenses they're going to play this season with anything in practice. They're barely going to play against the ones, if at all, the number one defensive players. But again, this just goes on, and this doubt of where this franchise's leadership is at, and it feels like some of you fans that were part of 1-31, 1-15, and then 0-16. This franchise went 1-31 in 2 years, and now you've got your two leaders of this franchise and your head coach and your general manager. They got your team to the playoffs twice in 4 years. Your head coach won Coach of the Year twice, and now all of a sudden, Browns fans, yeah, I mean, we can do better. He's not good enough for us. I equate it to, like the millionaire who complains that his diamond shoes are too tight. The national perception of Kevin Stefanski is fantastic. It truly is. And, I can't believe that, the things I hear from some people on social media who spend obviously so much time on social media, as I do. I'm guilty of it. But I mean, I don't know how you're all not reading or seeing the same things that I am. And like I told you when the Browns went to Philadelphia for joint practices, I wasn't so concerned about hearing from the Cleveland beat about those joint practices. In scenarios like that, I want to hear from the opposing team's beat and get their vibe on it. And they were all positive. When you hear Kevin Stefanski spoken about nationally or spoken about weekly, from reporters, the opposing team, and how they speak about Coach Kevin Stefanski, and I absolutely stand by it. If the Browns were to move on from Coach Kevin Stefanski, the only reason would be if he sat out of a coaching cycle and didn't get rehired as a head coach somewhere, would be because that's what he chose. Plain and simple. Now, I think everybody, is he going to be here next year? If you're asking me right now today, 110%. Is there a possibility he's not here next year? Of course there is. It's a possibility it could rain tomorrow. It's a possibility the sun doesn't come out tomorrow. We got 18 weeks coming up here to kind of give us a good idea where it's at. I've had people complain about the fact that the Browns can conceivably might only win 7 games this year. They won 3 last year. So you're telling me if the Browns made a jump from 3-14 to 7-10, that wouldn't be good enough improvement, and that meant that Coach Kevin Stefanski's got to go? So you're asking them, so you're saying that if they doubled their win total from last year, that's not good enough. In an offseason where their quarterback acquisitions were Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders. You're telling me that, that quarterback room, all of a sudden, the expectation and the demand is that they make the playoffs, or it's not good enough? Bro, I can't go there. Wait, you're not even being realistic if that's the case. And, told that, well, you're conditioned for them to be a 6-win, 7-win team. No. On paper, realistically, that's kind of what they look like. 7-win team. Certainly things can happen to increase that win total. You got a lot of youth on this team. And almost every one of these young players is going to have to play to the level of expectation or above the level of expectation, which is bananas. There's no way you can believe all of these kids are going to meet their expectation level or higher than their expectation level. Inconceivable and foolish to think that's certainly the case. Now, this team only wins 3 games again. The product overall looks as piss poor as it did in 2024. Would that change things? Hell yeah, certainly would change things. Absolutely would change things. I don't believe it's going to fall apart again like it did last year, because last year there was so much faith on Deshaun Watson, and I was guilty of it. I thought if you just judged Deshaun Watson's play in 2023, I thought he played well. And, I honestly thought there was a chance that maybe the whole narrative on him with Cleveland would have changed if he had continued to play in 2023. The drastic, stark difference of just how terrible, and I'm not even joking, terrible he looked in 2024. Like, bad. like bad, bad in 2024. He was terrible. You have to have faith, you know, that some of these kids are going to be pretty good. Question is it, going to be quickly? Certainly players like Mason Graham, certainly players like like Carson Schlesinger. Fannin, I can't put a whole lot of stock in because I'm not sure how many targets we're going to talk about for a guy who's a second tight end to David Njoku right now. You need somebody in that wide receiver room, anybody, to come to the party and be a player outside of Jerry Jeudy. Whether it's a Tillman or a Thrash, ideally the key names to watch there. I think the prospects of Isaiah Bond are fun. I'm not sure I can say that, there's much to any expectation for him. Missed a ton of the spring and summer. And again, unfortunately, we all know the reason. And, if that's one of your issues with Andrew Berry is, kind of going after players they shouldn't be going after, I get it. I do. There's no question about it. You don't want that, It's bad enough that the team loses, but it's even worse that, some of the guys you're relying on to make it better, you know, have off-field issues that just, haunt this franchise. Certainly looking forward to the game itself just being back. Thursday night, Cowboys, Eagles. And of course, Friday night, another game. The defending champion Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Storylines galore there, of course. Well, all the stuff lately with the Cowboys and certainly with the senility, I guess, of Jerry Jones. Basically nuking and pulling the pin of a grenade on his own franchise. I've seen that, there hasn't really been apparently a lot of tickets still available for Sunday's game, which does surprise me. And we'll see, how that actually works, once we get closer and closer to kickoff on Sunday. Because one thing I've always admired about you Browns fans is that, regardless of what your thoughts are about the franchise and where it currently is at, and even if you guys drag this franchise Monday through Saturday, you guys always showed up each and every week, regardless of the team's record. And you all showed up positive until there was a reason not to be positive, which certainly has been a stinking plenty of, right? But we turn the page. I don't want to hear any more about last year. I don't want to hear any more about 21 or 22. I don't. Barry and Stefanski are here. They have put the roster in place, the coaching staff in place. We're going to run this unit out on the field on Sunday. We're going to kick this team out of the nest and see if they can fly. Not saying they're going to soar, but can they fly? Can they be competitive? Can they show up each and every week? Can they get hats to the football? Can they cut down on their turnovers? Cut down on their penalties? All things that we've marked signs of improvement. So, yeah, I mean, if this team maybe only wins 7 games, I don't know how we're all, clutching our pearls that this team was just handled so poorly and coached so poorly. Got much more content coming throughout the week, so make sure everybody stick around. Of course, subscribe to the OBR on YouTube, subscribe on Twitch. Head on over to the OBR.com, get that VIP package. Get yourself smarter than your other Browns fans' friends. Insider forums, Ask the Insiders. And of course, your subscription is bundled with a subscription to Paramount Plus. UFC taking all their action there. You guys get two great things for the price of one. All of this being said, this has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. And we will talk to you all tomorrow.